God's justice is powerful, precise, and unavoidable. It does not rush, yet it never arrives late. It moves silently, patiently, and purposefully, striking exactly where pride believes it is untouchable. Pride is deceptive. It whispers false security into the human heart, convincing people that their power, status, intelligence, wealth, or influence can protect them from consequences. But history, life, and divine truth all agree on one reality: nothing stands above God's justice. Where pride builds walls, God's justice finds a door. Where arrogance feels strongest, divine correction is closest. Pride often disguises itself as confidence. It tells people they are self-made, self-sufficient, and self-righteous. Slowly, pride removes gratitude and replaces it with entitlement. A proud heart forgets the source of its blessings. It stops acknowledging God and begins to worship its own achievements. This is where danger begins, not because success is wrong, but because pride disconnects success from humility. And when humility leaves, wisdom follows soon after. God's justice is not cruel, it is corrective. It exists not to destroy people, but to restore truth. Pride distorts reality. It makes individuals believe they are above accountability, above correction, and sometimes even above God. Yet no human achievement can cancel divine authority. God sees beyond appearances. He examines intentions, motives, and hearts. What looks secure to human eyes may already be collapsing in the spiritual realm. Throughout life, we witness powerful individuals fall unexpectedly. Empires crumble, reputations shatter, and influence disappears overnight. These moments confuse those who only understand worldly logic. But for those who understand divine principles, these events reveal a deeper truth. Pride creates blind spots, and God's justice targets those blind spots with precision. Pride thinks it is safe in applause, wealth, followers, and fame. But God's justice operates beyond human systems. A proud heart resists correction. It rejects advice, despises warnings, and dismisses accountability. Pride convinces people that they are always right and others are always wrong. This mindset slowly isolates the individual. Relationships weaken, empathy fades, and compassion disappears. Eventually, pride builds a throne in the heart and God is pushed aside. That is when justice draws near. God does not compete with human pride. He allows it to reveal itself. He gives space, time, and opportunity for repentance. God's patience is often mistaken for approval, but patience is not permission, silence is not absence. While pride celebrates temporary victories, God is preparing eternal lessons. His justice does not strike randomly, it responds righteously. Pride is especially dangerous because it thrives on comparison. It feeds on looking down on others, measuring worth through superiority. The proud heart says, "I am better," while humility says, "I am grateful." God honors humility because humility recognizes dependence on Him. Pride denies that dependence and claims ownership of glory that does not belong to it. God's justice hits where pride thinks it is safe, when strength becomes weakness, when influence turns into isolation, when confidence becomes confusion. These moments are not accidents, they are awakenings. God shakes what is false so that what is true can stand. Pride builds on fragile foundations. Humility builds on eternal truth. One of the greatest illusions of pride is control. Proud people believe they control outcomes, people, and futures. But life constantly proves otherwise. Health can change in a moment. Wealth can disappear in a day. Influence can vanish with one decision. God's justice exposes the limits of human control. It reminds humanity that sovereignty belongs to God alone. This message is not only about warning, it is about wisdom. God's justice also protects the humble. While pride falls loudly, humility rises quietly. God resists the proud but gives grace to the humble. Grace is not earned, it is received by those who understand their need for God. Humility opens the door to grace, and grace strengthens the soul. Pride often blinds people to their own flaws. It magnifies the faults of others while minimizing personal responsibility. This spiritual imbalance creates moral decay. God's justice restores balance. It reveals truth even when truth is uncomfortable. Exposure is not punishment, it is correction. God exposes pride to heal the heart. When pride is confronted by justice, there are two possible outcomes: repentance or destruction. Repentance leads to restoration. Destruction comes from continued resistance. God desires repentance, not ruin. He calls people back before they fall apart. But pride rarely listens until it is broken. Humility is strength under control. It is the ability to acknowledge weakness without shame and seek help without fear. Humble people grow because they remain teachable. Proud people stagnate because they believe they have nothing to learn. God's justice favors growth, transformation, and truth. In personal life, pride can destroy families, friendships, and futures. It creates conflict where peace could exist. It turns love into competition and communication into arguments. God's justice intervenes to stop the spread of pride's damage. Sometimes that intervention feels painful, but pain often precedes healing. In leadership, pride is even more dangerous. Leaders influence others, and pride multiplies its effects through authority. God holds leaders accountable because their pride affects many lives. History shows that arrogant leaders fall harder because their pride is higher. God's justice levels the ground. Spiritual pride is the most deceptive form of all. It convinces people they are righteous because of appearances, rituals, or positions. But God looks at the heart. Spiritual pride pushes people away from grace while pretending to be close to God. Jesus himself confronted this form of pride more than any other. God's justice exposes hypocrisy with clarity. God's justice also brings hope to the oppressed. When pride abuses power, justice defends the powerless. God hears the cries of the humble and responds. Pride may dominate temporarily, but justice has the final word. No injustice escapes God's awareness. Humility invites God into every area of life. It recognizes that success is stewardship, not ownership. It understands that blessings are responsibilities, not trophies. When people live with humility, God entrusts them with more because their hearts remain aligned with His purpose. The fall of pride is not the end of the story, it can be the beginning of redemption. Many people encounter God most deeply after pride is shattered. Brokenness opens the door to transformation. God rebuilds what pride destroys, but He rebuilds it on humility. God's justice does not humiliate, it humbles. There is a difference. Humiliation destroys dignity, but humility restores perspective. God humbles to save, not to shame. His goal is alignment, not embarrassment. A humble life is a protected life. It stays under God's covering because it stays under God's authority. Pride steps outside that covering and exposes itself to downfall. God's justice acts as both a warning and a rescue. In the end, every human heart will bow, either willingly through humility or forcibly through justice. Wisdom chooses humility early. It chooses surrender before collapse. It chooses truth before exposure. God's justice hits where pride thinks it is safe, not to prove His power, but to reveal His truth. Pride is temporary. Humility is eternal. Those who walk humbly walk securely because their foundation is not self, but God. Let this message serve as a mirror, not a weapon. It is not meant to condemn others, but to examine ourselves. Where pride has taken root, humility must be planted. Where arrogance has grown, repentance must begin. Choose humility. Choose dependence on God. Choose wisdom over ego. Because when pride believes it is safe, God's justice is already near. And when humility leads, God's grace follows. A pride often grows silently. It does not announce its arrival. It settles slowly into thoughts, attitudes, and decisions. At first, it feels harmless confidence, self-belief, ambition. But over time, pride hardens the heart. It replaces prayer with assumption and replaces dependence on God with reliance on self. This gradual shift is dangerous because it feels natural. People do not realize they are drifting until they are far from humility. God's justice addresses this drift. It intervenes not only when pride becomes loud, but when it becomes rooted. Many people believe justice only appears in dramatic moments, but often it begins quietly through loss of peace, broken relationships, unanswered prayers, or internal emptiness. These are warning signs, invitations to return to humility before greater consequences unfold. Pride also affects how people treat others. When pride rules the heart, compassion weakens. People become harsh in judgment and slow to forgive. They demand grace for themselves but deny it to others. God's justice corrects this imbalance. It reminds humanity that everyone stands on equal ground before Him. No title, achievement, or position gives anyone superiority in God's eyes. Another false security of pride is moral superiority. Pride convinces people that they are good because they are better than someone else. But God's justice does not compare people with people. It measures hearts against truth. External morality without internal humility is fragile. God exposes this fragility so that genuine transformation can take place. When pride collapses, it often feels like failure. But in God's design, collapse can become clarity. Many people encounter God most deeply not at the height of success, but at the depth of humility. When pride is stripped away, the soul becomes honest. Honest hearts are receptive hearts, and receptive hearts are transformed hearts. God's justice also teaches patience to the humble. While pride demands immediate recognition, humility waits on God. This waiting is not weakness, it is trust. God honors those who trust Him with timing, outcomes, and recognition. Pride rushes ahead and stumbles. Humility walks steadily and remains secure. The ultimate goal of God's justice is alignment. It realigns hearts with truth, lives with purpose, and souls with eternity. Pride pulls people away from this alignment, but justice restores it. This restoration may be uncomfortable, but it is always meaningful. Let this expanded reflection deepen understanding rather than fear. God's justice is not something to escape, but something to respect. When humility leads, justice becomes protection rather than correction. A humble heart walks safely because it walks closely with God.